Welcome to Success on Your Terms, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break free from the noise, and redefine what success really means for you. I'm your host, Natalie Potts, and in each episode, we're diving into unfiltered perspectives on business and life because success isn't one size fits all. We'll explore how entrepreneurs are thinking differently, taking bold actions, and creating their own rules. Get ready to rethink how you approach growth, strategy, and the true meaning of success. It's time to stop following the crowd and start building your business your way. Jenni, welcome to Success on Your Terms. We know each other really well, but I know this will be a great conversation because we always get in a great flow. Introduce yourself, what you do, and just to put you on the spot, something random.
Okay. Well, actually, what I do is a bit random, to be honest, so I can cover that one off. So for the last 10 years, so I had a corporate job, very similar to you, had a high-flying corporate job and burnt out in that, realized it wasn't what I wanted to do at all. But there were elements of it that I love, which was all to do with helping people, coaching people, developing people. But I didn't want to do the 8 million spreadsheets and PowerPoints that I was dying underneath. And it was a global role and all of that. Anyway, so I burnt out, nervous system just fell over. And I thought, right, what am I going to do? So I took my other passion, which is riding horses. And I thought, right, I love mindset, I love people, and I love horses. What can I do? And I've also been through loads of confidence issues myself in life with horses and outside of horses. So I thought, right, going to set up a business doing that. So Flying Changes Mindset was born, well, 11 years ago now, actually. And so for that past decade, I have been concentrating on helping horse riders to overcome mindset issues. But what kind of happened during that journey, as things do, is I was obviously developing like a successful business and I was doing things that were seen to be very different because I was taking, lead from people who are out there doing what's considered to be different, but we all think's normal. And I was getting lots of people wanting business coaching and things as well. And what I was finding, funnily enough, is the same mindset issues were coming in business stuff as they were in horse riding. So obviously the difference in riding is that you are sat on board a half a ton sentient being with its own version of what it wants. And you have to try and communicate that to them. You can't just like, well, you can try and make them do it. Sometimes it works, but normally it's quite short term till they tell you to bog off. And so businesses was like, well, hang on a minute. Actually, the only thing really getting in your way is you, because you haven't got to try and get this beast to do something at the same time. Although your business can feel like a beast at times, I can definitely understand that. So bold business mindset was born, and now I help entrepreneurs to get out of their own way because most people think in business that yeah, we need strategy, yeah, we need clear goals, yeah, we need accountability, yeah, we need the right product, we need sales, we do need that stuff. But actually, if you're getting in your own way and all of that stuff is in place, but what you need to be doing, you're not doing, then you're your own worst enemy. So I think that's pretty random, to be honest. I think that will cover the random one off as
Okay.
well.
Even if thinking about making a horse do what you want it to do, and I was like, probably wouldn't happen. Uh,
Yeah.
you are spot on in speaking my language about like the port of, I think I shared something last week around you're the bottleneck. You are the biggest problem in your business. I think what that leads me on to talk about and very much the mindset is that mindset is 90, 95%, 99%, whatever the game, isn't it? It is all around that. And I know all of the business growth work I've done the last few years since leaving corporate, and again, similar stories like yourself of burnout, depression, exhaustion. What am I doing it for? It's constantly there. I think people want to overcome it almost sometimes. I've done a mindset where it's like it's always going to be working on. I'm always working on money mindset. I'm always working on self-belief. Um, believe it or not, confidence, like all those things you're always still working on all the time. And the ability to just divorce emotion from a lot of it, especially running a business and working on that mindset part for me has profoundly shaped how I make better decisions. I implement at speed. I just give things a go and then just think, oh, okay, it didn't work. So what didn't work? Next thing and try, different things opposed to getting emotionally bogged down and drained of energy because it's just not worked. It's so important and it's great. I love the fact you're doing it because it's almost been like a no-brainer for you to lean into, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of I love it when things organically evolve. Because then you just kind of think, okay, this was clearly meant to be.
100%. And you built great relationships. All of the work you've done previous to coming into this part of mindset has, again, like you've seen, led you to it, hasn't it, on the journey piece? What has
Yeah,
been some of the challenges for you around growing your business since leaving corporate?
so I think overwhelm, without any doubt, was a big challenge because especially when you come out of something very structured, and I love the structure, and don't get me wrong, I do like a good spreadsheet. So it's just not being drowned by them. I think that was very difficult to begin with. I was a little bit like a child in a sweetie shop, like because suddenly I could do anything, I did. And I didn't have strategy and I didn't have structure, even though I've got a degree in business, I'm a strategist, I know all this stuff, but sometimes you can know it, but applying it is a very different thing. And that's been like a theme I see a lot of people in business and myself. Sometimes you can know it, but doing it is a totally different thing. Um, and it's the same with mindset. I have a mindset coach for exactly the reason that you were talking about as well, which is that, my favorite term, and I know you know this one as well, is you can't see the label from inside the bottle. So you have to have someone else help you to see those blind spots. And you could be aware of something, and awareness is important, but it doesn't change anything. And it's having someone to help you shift out of that mindset and help you realize perhaps why you're in it. So my stuff has always been around. I always work with root cause and not symptom. Like that is what I've always done. And some people that scares them a little bit because they think it's going back to like, some kind of childhood therapy or something, but it's absolutely not. Like the work that I do and the techniques I use, they can't be further from doing that. But we do need to get back to the part of the brain that created that belief in the first place or created that thing that's holding us back and is protecting us. So it's remembering that our brain is only ever keeping us safe and it's doing a great job of it. But sometimes it's keeping us safe from something that's not actually dangerous. And that's where the nervous system stuff comes in, which I would say in the last 4 years, I've really dug into and really like lent into the nervous system work. And it's becoming a lot more known now and people are talking about it a lot more as well. Because if we think about our nervous system as automatic, that will trump our mindset every time because it's happening automatically. And yes, a lot of mindset is as well. But if our nervous system feels like we're in danger, that's when the mindset stuff comes in because it's going to be protecting us from whatever perceived danger there is all the time. And then our mindset is then going to affect the way that we run our business. So really we kind of need to look at that level to begin with. And that's where I've really loved working with people because it's that stuff where we can go to your system like it's okay, you're safe. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. You don't have to overwork. You don't have to feel you're not good enough or people please or avoid doing things or procrastinate on stuff because that's the kind of the four personas that I've come across that are the main things that people do. So they'll either avoid, they'll people please, they'll procrastinate, or they'll end up in overwhelm. And although some of them are similar and you might be a mix, they're generally the things that are getting in people's way. And they are a mix of your nervous system sensing danger, even if there isn't any, and feeling stressed and all of that stuff, as well as your mind getting in the way and creating all these stories and reasons around it and trying to protect you.
It's fascinating. What I like about how you share stuff and deliver it, and I always talk about like messaging is share a bit, like a part of a message can be how you do what you do. Like I'm known for no BS, let's take action, make it happen, get results. Like there's a style that we all have, right? And there'll be that will be in tone as well, and tone's important in sales. Um, just thinking around like how you share things is so personable. You have a tone there as well where it's not serious, it's not deep, but it's empathetic probably is a better word, and compassionate in like let's just see it for what it is as well and slow things down a bit. And I think that came to mind when you were sharing things around the mindset work. A lot of what I've done when I reflect is it's not just overnight, and it's that sometimes hard work is that it's not an instant, and it takes time and it takes patience, and like you don't have to have a lot of the answers straight away. I know when I was working with my mindset coach a few years back I was speaking at an event and I was talking around a bit of like what does freedom mean as a word? Like we ban very bold words around without really giving them any articulation or giving them a meaning as such that makes it relatable to people as well. I was like, we've got financial freedom, we've got freedom, all these different things. And it was coming because essentially I was just very much that mode of work harder, make more money type thing, do more hours. And if you work hard, you get good things in life, which was a belief from many years ago. And as an umbrella and like overall, there's an element I agree with that. If you work hard, you know, good things do happen. You have to work hard for things, but it's not as clear, black and white as that. And it led me to a conversation with her. I was really struggling to do this bloody presentation and for this speech. And I was like, I'm really struggling with what does it mean and how do I get it across so it's relatable for people? And actually, what is freedom in my whole life? Like, because she said, like, could you, one of my things is the health, obviously, like I talk about a lot, but she's like, could you go to the gym right now? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, could you just go and pick up your niece if you need to? I was like, yeah, I just move stuff around. She goes, could you have done it the same way in like in corporate? And I was like, no, there wasn't that flexibility. And that's part of the freedom I wanted and have. And she goes, so you're searching again and continuing to be on a path of like freedom, freedom, freedom. But she goes, but you have it right now, right? And I was like, yeah. So but it was so interesting. It took me so long to really just even again, like you said, like I knew it. And then even going through that process there, I knew it, bringing that to life and taking everything with that for me, how I saw it and believed it as well, that takes the time.
It does. And I think what was really interesting listening to your story there is something that's really common, which is we move the goalposts. So, you know, when you were in your corporate job, and I get this one completely, you don't have freedom. Like I really didn't either. Like I was traveling all over the place and I'd literally be told, like, right, tomorrow we need you to go to you know, Brazil or something. Okay. You know, and I really didn't have that freedom. And so then when I left it, I was chasing freedom, chasing freedom, chasing freedom. And I was really worried about blocking my diary out or doing too much work or burning out again. Like genuinely was very scared of that for quite a few years. It took me about 5 years, to be honest, to recover. And also my body, because I had like chronic fatigue and ME apparently. But I know what I actually had was nervous system burnout. It was nothing to do with those things. They're just great labels. Sorry to anyone that disagrees with that, but that's how I feel and that's what I've seen over the years. But what is interesting is I had freedom. Like you were saying, I now have freedom. I've got a 2-year-old daughter. I've got horses. I can ride them in the daylight. The horses, obviously. The 2-year-old daughter, you know, I can take her to things. I have Mondays and Fridays that I spend with her, and I do have freedom to choose. And actually, if I wanted to change my plans this afternoon and go and do something different, I could to some
Yeah,
degree. But because I was always chasing after the fact that I didn't think I had freedom, I'd move the goalposts.
yeah,
And I think that's something that people do a lot. And it's not necessarily always that the mindset work takes time. It's just that I don't think we focus on it enough or have someone there saying, you realize you just said that, didn't you? For us to realize it and then just change task, change tack, you know, realize, oh, actually, I have got the thing I've been driving for. Okay, so what's this really about then? And I think that happens a lot, particularly with entrepreneurs. We're always driving after things, and
yeah.
we sometimes forget when we've got them.
It is huge, and you have to be really careful. This hit home last year about the life that you want for you and not being swept up in society, idealisms or what everybody expects you to have or you should have, or all those things. I remember going to Canada and I was around like people that had a lot of money, like millions. And I was like, what on earth am I doing here? And I've gone from feeling elated going across the world to like, oh my God, like this is the worst thing I could have done. And it took me, I was walking back, and because I'm curious, and again, because I'm doing the mindset work all the time, I was like, are you, yes, it's a bit of self-coaching yourself type of thing, but I was like, stop. Like, why am I feeling this way? What is this emotion here? Because I'm in control of this. So what is going on? And I realized like if you put me in their shoes today, would I want that life? And I was like, no, because it's amazing for them, but and it's not judgment. I don't want that life. Yeah, I'm almost somehow comparing on against that, or that I'm not good enough for that. And that's not true. And it's again, it's that when you have that strong awareness and do something with that, the decision, the action, that's when a change comes. But I don't believe without the mindset work that I've done and do, I would be this aware or this able to slow things down at the right pace. And all of that absolutely serves my business all the time. I want to come on to a point like you said about a bit around labels as well. Almost though, and it's like buzzwords, whatever, but the nervous system, break it down from like what's your interpretation of it and how's it helped you practically? Because I think that's definitely a trend this year. And I saw that coming last year of people. It's not wrong, but again, we'll just get swooped up into something. And but what does it mean to you? So that can almost become a label in itself of going to nervous work and people like, what?
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I would love to call it something that isn't the nervous system, but because it is a word at the moment that people are aware of, I'm using it
Sure.
because there is more awareness around it. So your nervous system is automatic, or it's actually called the autonomic nervous system. And it has been around millions and millions of years in us, and it's designed to help us realize whether the saber-toothed tiger is going to eat us or not, basically. And it's in a really primal part of our brain, and it's controlled by something called our vagus nerve. And that is in the oldest part of the brain to ever be created or, to have developed. Now, as humans, we think we're running off logic, right? That's what we think we're running off because we use logic a lot. So we use reasoning and problem solving and, action planning and goal setting and all that kind of thing because we have a really big part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is all to do with that. The problem comes though when we're trying to solve issues using that part of our brain, when in actual fact it has shut down. And it shuts down when this old part of our brain senses danger. Now, in our lifestyles nowadays, there isn't much danger, right? Tesco's delivers, okay? We don't have to go and kill our food anymore, right? And it's not going to kill us, okay? So,
This is
so
what I love. I'm just going to point it out that I was just saying, like the personable just stuff of like, just get a grip for a minute. Let's slow it
exactly.
and be reasonable here.
Exactly. But I mean, even in you saying that, right, the thing about that part of our brain, though, is it takes the blood from the bit that lets us do that and it puts us in this part of us that goes, oh my God, I'm in danger. And although I talk about danger, it doesn't have to be danger. It can be stress, it can be overwhelm, it can be that what we think we need to do feels scary. So, for instance, I think we've all probably launched something or created something that fell on its face and was either embarrassing or created a financial problem or burnt us out or stressed us. And so then what happens is our brain goes, do you know, I didn't like that when it happened last time. So I don't want it to happen again. So if there's the potential that it will, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in the stress response. I'm going to put you in fight or flight, or I'm going to freeze you completely because they're the options that come from this part of the brain. Um, and so then we don't take action or we avoid things or we do any of the people pleasing, procrastinating, avoiding, overwhelm, all of that stuff. So it doesn't have to be anything to do with physical danger. I mean, obviously, all the work I've done with horse riders over the years, there quite often is an element of they've fallen off and hurt themselves or something has nearly happened. But in business, it's very rarely something physical. It's very often the fear of not wanting to be visible because we're worried about people judging us, and that will go back to when we're at school and something happened, or not wanting to say something that we shouldn't and someone say something and trolling us, or not wanting to put ourselves out there and be a bit controversial about something because people might say horrible things about us, or any of that stuff, right? That is the nervous system at play. So although we talk about this old part of the brain and it's automatic and it's doing this stuff all the time, but we're not in danger, actually our brains are not configured to live in the world that we live in. It's fast paced, it's cortisol fueled. We get dopamine hits from Facebook and social media all the time. We eat food that isn't good for our systems and things. We don't exercise necessarily. And if we do, we often sometimes will push ourselves a bit too far and push the system into a state that it's to. And all of this stuff. And even things like, one of the things that I offer is launch support. So if you've got a launch coming up, for instance, we need your nervous system to be in the right place so you can push, but you don't burn out. Because if you're scared of burning out, you won't push enough and it probably won't go as well as it could. But if you push too much and you burn out, then your system next time isn't going to want to do it and things. So that's basically what I talk about when it comes to the nervous system, is just knowing that there's this part of our brain that is automatic that we have no conscious control over, apart from when we do have conscious control and we're doing little things that can help it just reconnect to us and get back into ourselves and say to ourselves, you are safe, it's okay, you can do whatever this action is that you need to do, or break it down, it's all right. So yeah.
Something like I'm really big on, and Tom and I know this, but like I need my own downtime and space. I'm massive on this. I like the 5 a.m. club, and I like sometimes, not all the time, but I like grabbing a coffee, reading in the morning when it's peaceful, when no one else is up in the world but me.
Yeah.
It's just my time. I know often what I need. I've come to things like fill my toolbox with like, what do I really need? Often it's gym. I need some physical exercise each day. But sometimes it's just I learned this a lot when I was struggling. leaving corporate and I've went into they officially signed me off depression. I was like, I'm going to look at what I can control. And I read a book called Lost Connections by Johan Hari. And he spoke a lot around again how the pharmaceutical industry and all these fitness industries are so set up to make it, it's just money making. And actually going and spending time in nature or doing things that are within your control are going to actually probably help us more with depression and going and getting put on meds. And that I didn't get put on meds. I was drinking a lot and they told me to stop that, which I did. And I was also adamant that I wanted to respect that. Probably one of the only things that the NHS has said that's probably actually resonated and felt wise advice, but they said, we're not going to put you on a meds. Sometimes that's needed and that's never any judgment there. But I just found so much peace and space and calm is the better word in just going out for a walk. And there'll be times when I'm working, I'm just like, I just need a walk now. I just need some fresh air. Is that something that's practical as well when we talk of nervous system?
Yeah. So the thing, and this, some people that have just heard this listening in, this would have annoyed me when someone says this, but it's the case. Well, I'll give you some examples. Is actually what your nervous system needs is totally individual to you. So a lot
Yeah.
of people say, tell me what I need to be doing. And it's like, well, it's individual to you. But you need to have some ideas to play about with to work out what it is. So the idea is that there's three states of your nervous system. There's the calm, which you actually even use that word, calm, connected, safe. Okay. That is where we want it and need it to be. Most of the time, it's good for us. That means our system can work the way it's meant to. We're not throwing anything out. We're not putting a load of pressure on it. Hormones aren't doing things they're not meant to do, and all of that jazz, right? Then the next phase up is fight or flight, which is about mobilization. It's about either getting away or fighting away what we need. So that's where adrenaline and cortisol and all of that stuff comes in. And that's we're okay in that state. And it's good for us actually to go into that state. And often things like the gym, particularly cardio and things like that, will push us up a little bit into that state, or having a deadline to work on, or things that make us take action. It's actually not a problem, but we can't be in there a lot. We need to go in it, come back down, go in it, come back down. And then that does what we call tones our vagus nerve. So our vagus nerve is just like a muscle. It can come up and be stressed and come back down, and come up and be stressed and come back down. And that's what we need to have it do, right? The problem comes when what you've described there, when we're in depression or we're in overwhelm, is when we go into what's called freeze. So we can't fight away the problem. We can't flight away the problem. Our system's overloaded, so it shuts down and it goes into immobilization, which is freeze, which is very often where we get chronic fatigue, we get ME, we get physical symptoms then start to kick in, like muscle aches and physical stuff that like fibromyalgia and things, and depression, and so depression sits up there. Anxiety actually sits in the fight or flight mode. So too much anxiety will then drop into depression because our system just goes, I can't cope with this, I've got to stop, because it can't cope with the constant flow. So there is an interesting difference between when we're calm and connected and when we're actually in what we call freeze. And a lot of business people, I don't think, realize they're in what we call functional freeze. So they can do stuff and they're getting things done, but actually it's from a place of being stuck and then having to do something and being stuck and then having to do something rather than it flowing. So the reason I'm telling you about that is because when we understand that the vagus nerve is like a muscle and we don't want it stuck in freeze and we don't want it coming up and down like and being stuck in fight or flight, we want it to be able to come down, regulate. That's the word we use, regulate itself. Know you're safe, know you're okay, bring your system back down again, and then go again. And that's fine. That we're designed to do that in life. It's like a sprint. Um, and so things that you can do, spend time in nature, walk. So actually, let's categorize them just really quickly. If you're in fight or flight too much, you need to come down into calm. And that means going from mobilization, which is running around and being crazy, to calm things. So that's where meditation, a warm bath, a nice book, sitting somewhere lovely and chilling out, a lovely meal, maybe gentle exercise, yoga. Yoga is very good because it releases things in the body, Pilates, that kind of stuff. Any of that kind of self-care, which is really individual, that brings you down into calm. Meditation is incredible for it. Breath work is brilliant for it. If you're in fight or flight and you've pushed up into freeze, we actually need to move you again, right? So
Mm.
that's where things like the gym, like as in cardio or a dance class or something that's got movement involved in it, putting your system under a little bit of pressure, that actually brings you into little fight or flight mode. So you can then connect down into calm because you can't skip a step. You can't go from freeze to calm. You have to go through fight or flight. So that's where really this stuff is very individual. And I think you need to kind of look at, is what you are doing working for you, or is it pushing your system too much? Because if you're someone who's like on the go all the time, blah 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 blah, and then you're always at the gym and you're pushing it, blah blah blah, and then you don't stop, and then you're always adrenaline, like you
Yeah.
need calm things to help you regulate. Other people might be doing all the calm stuff and just kind of being stuck. They might need something energized to help them a little bit. So I hope that kind of explained it.
Yeah, it's great. It is really, it's, I can see it. I know what you mean and where you're at, and that's important. That's what I'm saying. Like when these words are bandied about or things like, I'm working on my nervous regulation system, like with what? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Where are you where you want to be? Like what, yeah, like you said, when you clearly again articulate that as you have, it helps you to know, like, again, like, what do you really need right now? And I think that's sometimes a great question. People's probably go more into the mental health what I've done before, but one, like, how are you? Like, actually, how are you? And also just the like, what do you need right now? Like, just but asking that more for yourself as well, and giving yourself that space and time. We've banded around the word overwhelm as well a couple of times today. I put something actually yesterday into one of the communities I'm in about. It was I read the Daily Stoic each day. Some people like it or they don't like stoicism, but I've liked it. And it was talking around the fact that overwhelm, and like we I've said it, I'm overwhelmed, and I will always continue to say it at points. But I remember years ago I did a podcast on it. It was like, do you want to be overwhelmed or underwhelmed? Because you're not going to join my program and be underwhelmed, are you? So it's again it's getting that clarity, but overwhelm I feel sometimes is more within our control as well, isn't it? Like these things are happening for us, not to us, and actually it's still our response to something that we're just overwhelmed. What's your thoughts on it?
So if we go back to the work I've done with athletes, so I work with top Team GB horse riders and people like that, and they're under pressure to perform in that 8 minute test that they have to go and do, or that cross country round that's going to take them 10 minutes, or that show jumping round which is going to take them 2 minutes, or whatever it is they've got to do in that moment. They've got to pull it out the bag for whatever reason. And if we look at what we have, which is a performance and pressure curve, so performance goes up and pressure goes along. And at the bottom of that curve, where there's no pressure and you're not going to perform, you're in boredom. So that's underwhelm. Then as you start to push and the curve starts to come up, you go into what's called comfort. So yeah, I can do this. I'm doing something, I'm quite happy doing it. Then as you push it up a little bit more with the pressure, your performance goes up a bit more because you're then in stretch, which is your learning zone, and that's great. That's where we want to be. That's a really great place to be. And then there's this tiny little bit at the top which tips from that to stress. And again, we look at the nervous system. Those bottom bits are nice and green. They're okay. They're in calm and connected. You tip it over the top, you end up in the amber, fight or flight. So you start fighting or flighting, like, oh, I'm a bit overwhelmed. There's too much going on, but I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Too much of that and not coming back at all will tip you into just total overwhelm, and then you will just stop. You will just fall over in some way or another, or your body will make you do it, because that's often what happens, right? And so then you're not performing at all. You come right back down the other side of the curve. And these athletes, what we do with them, we want to plateau along the top of it, because the more, and this is where we call the word resilience, the more ability you've got to handle pressure and still be at your best, the longer that is, the more you can handle pressure to a certain point. Because what they have got a lot of the time, they don't realize it until we get into it, they've got a lot of tools where they're like up in the pressure and then they bring themselves back down again. Before they go and do that test, they ground themselves, they do some of that calm and connected work, they get themselves into the flow, which is, you can only get into flow state in calm and connected with a little bit of pressure, a little bit of fight and flight. Too much of it, particularly with a horse around, because they pick up on this stuff, they're like, what's wrong, I don't like it. And then they won't perform either. So we want to increase that, like, plateau, that tabletop of how much pressure you can take and how much that helps your performance. But everyone's curve is different as well. So some people, and again, often because of their nervous system, if they've had a lot going on in the past and they are sort of headed towards freeze, and their nervous system can't cope with a lot of pressure, they're going to have quite a quick curve that takes them up to that overwhelm piece before they fall off the other end of it. Other people that have never really had any pressure in life and things have been all right, or for whatever reason nothing adverse has really ever happened, they'll need more pressure to really get them to that peak performance. So again, it's so individual as well as to what would overwhelm some people doesn't overwhelm others, and how you can deal with it. So we could probably all be given the same workload. And I think, to be honest, as business owners, we all have about the same kind of stuff we have to be doing all the time, right? But some people will cope with it far better than others. And I think some people will cope with it far better than others for two reasons. One, some people have got less baggage, less things that have happened to them, therefore they're not affected. Two, the people that have got all of that stuff know how to regulate themselves, like yourself. You know the things you need to do to help you perform at your best. Others won't have those tools. And so they'll just feel constantly overwhelmed, not good enough, not able to, and just on that treadmill.
That's fascinating, and I love again how you articulate it because it's spot on, and it makes sense, makes perfect sense, and it's again why it's an invitation to people that this is what you have to do. It's so important, and I realized that when I started my mastermind last year, and I got to a point I was like, there wasn't any mindset in it, and part of it was honesty because I didn't want to do the mindset of other people because it's like it's not my expertise, it's not my skill set. But I'm also running a business thing that people absolutely have to have the mindset work on. So then it's changed and I focused on that for them because it is there. And I can't also, I'm big on walking my talk. If I'm going to do it, I need to help others on it as well. So it's I think the invitation here is to do the work and find out like what you need for these things because they can absolutely change everything. And it's I love the point you make around performance and resilience at the top as well on that part. And I remember when like I was in retail corporate, but there was periods of the year, seasons like Easter, Christmas, where it was relentless. Like that was our work, which is that it's relentless right now. And then through COVID, every day was relentless. But you knew there was periods of that where you could not be, and I'd say it to managers, I said, like, you can't be at this level the whole year. Like I'm not expecting. I said, but you do have to up your game, or like the corporate slang we did use, but you do have to up the performance focus has to change at these busy periods of time, and you have to be different in how you operate. You have to be making sure you're on point. And I worked for years where people would we'd have a culture where people would work ridiculous hours. They'd be in at 7 and they'd leave at 7, 8 at night. And that was the culture. And we did 12 hours at least straight for 7 days. And they got to a point probably a few years before COVID. And I remember being the one out of my team once out of 20 and said, I'm not making my team do it. And I literally, it was frowned upon. I said, I don't believe in it. One, I'm not doing it. So don't expect me to do it. And there's not a lot you can do on that. And two, I'm not expecting my team to do it because I think I'll get so much more out of them because I know the same with myself. I'm productive when I've woken up, I've got good sleep, I go to the gym, I come for my day. I don't have to be there at 7 in the morning because my team are very capable and competent, and I trust them and I've done that work with them. So they're going to run the show then I'll come in, I'll do my solid, and then I'll hand over to people that do an amazing job as well. I said, and if they want to stay a bit longer, that's up to them, but that's not forced by me. And actually, you just got so much more performance out of people by not pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. That's solid because that's where we see the whole, we're not, robots, we're human beings. And I feel that it's a culture thing then. And that can be the same, whether it's corporate or not, in small businesses. You will set the culture for how you work yourself, and you'll set the culture for how you lead others in things. And those things, whether are absolutely going to contribute to how successful you are in business, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you there. I think it's interesting when you're in business on your own. You might have a bit of a team or something, but who are we looking up to? Who are we comparing ourselves? Who are our mentors? Who are the people that we're looking at online? What assumptions are we making about what their life is like or what it's not? And are we trying to, fit to their model when actually it's not right for us?
If you're enjoying this episode and want to simplify your business while making it work for you on your terms, my mastermind could be exactly what you need. It's designed to help you refine your messaging, streamline your strategy, and accelerate growth, all while aligning with your vision. If you're ready to stop overcomplicating things and build a business that truly works for you, DM the word podcast across social platforms to learn more. Now, let's jump back into today's episode.
I think in corporate it's very different, isn't it? Because you're in that corporate culture and there isn't a lot you can do to change corporate culture. But like you say, when you're a leader, you've got some chance of changing your section of it at least. And that's why people leave managers, they don't leave jobs. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I agree. I think it's really hard sometimes. We don't see behind the scenes very often. And that's why getting great mentors and, seeing behind the scenes people, like I was on a mastermind, I'm in a mastermind this year. And the person running that the other day turned around and said, let's just cut the BS, shall we? I do this stuff, right? I do the follow ups, I do the calls, I do the thing that none of us really want to be doing. But that's the difference between why I am a millionaire. And it was like, yeah, okay, fine. And it's like, and let's just distill some myths around passive income. It's not passive. There is nothing about it. So you don't put a product out there and it just sells, right? So, yes, okay, it won't be taking time for money and things like that. But let's just get really honest about some of the things that have come up in our world right now, which have been taken the wrong way. But you need that person to say that stuff.
we
And I
do.
think a lot of business people don't have that necessarily, or maybe they are following someone rather than getting into their inner world. And you do need to get into their inner world really to know what's going on behind the scenes. Because, of course, they're going to sell the lifestyle, aren't they? That's the whole point of marketing.
It is, and you have to see it again for what it is. And again, it comes back to detach your emotion from it, and do the work. And that's what everything comes back to. And I think we're getting on to hear about the whole, like what you want from your business. Lots of people still don't really know what they want or what they're working towards. And they're not willing to put in the work for it. They just want it overnight. And the great things take time. And it's even like going back to the start of the conversation today of yourself, like I'm talking to you now thinking, God, this was a no-brainer a few years ago with you when we were working on all the stuff you're doing, which is incredible. But it's just like, meet yourself where you're at. I'm here. And again, that's another thing, is always the next thing and just being present and grateful for what you have. It's not doolally, it's not deluded. It's pivotal to just put yourself in a place where, and also you love what you do. I love what I do. It's very delivery heavy right now, but that's okay because I've got my plan for the rest of the year that isn't so much that. But at the moment, I'm enjoying it. And then, I get great at one thing and then that unpacks the next thing, or I just do really well, serve clients, deliver what I say I will, and then get out more conversations, do the follow up, like do the work I know that gets results. That the strategy, I did a little reel on it from the gym today, but is the strategy's not complicated, but you got to do the work. I can go to the gym and I can get abs, but I'm not going to get them in 2 weeks, unless I'm pretty fit anyway, but probably not going to most times. But I don't want the PT. I don't want the strategy. I don't want the mindset of the discipline beyond motivation. But I know I've got to get up at 5 in the morning or 6 or 7, and it's cold and it's wet and it's dark. And I've got to push through that because ultimately it's something I really want. And again, when we slow things down, speed up, as I say a lot, that have that really strong vision, as you say, environment is massive of getting people around a mindset stuff. Like that is, or when they say, what's your keys to success? Like top, let alone five, like the top three is you have to surround yourself with people that have mindsets of where you want to be. And that same outlook on life and would be on business. It has to be on life.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you there. And I think it can be hard sometimes when you're on your own in business because you might feel like you're surrounding yourself with those people because you like following them on socials or something, but you're not surrounding yourself by those people. You're surrounding yourself by their messaging. And we all know messaging is about tell people what they want, but give them what they need. Because I think if some of these guys that we all know and follow and love and adore, and we're in their inner circle, so we know what's really going on, their lifestyles just look incredible and easy. But actually, when you get in their inner circle and they're like, wow, gee, I've had a hard day or a hard launch or a hard month, or, and in fact, one of the things that we opened up with on this mastermind, we were in person last week, was business is hard right now for everyone at every level. Online is changing.
It is.
So let's just accept that now, rather than us all sitting there going, well, it's all right for you, because no, it's not all right for them either, actually. We've just watched some launches that have not been what they were. And, okay, they're still successful. It depends what your goalpost is, but it's the same for everyone. So let's all stop sitting there whinging and actually get on with it. And I think when you're in the inner circles, that's the conversations you can have. When you're not, and that's why it's so important to invest in, even if you can't invest in someone's inner circle or mastermind or whatever it is, I think investing in some coaching from someone who can sit there and say to you, okay, where on earth have you got that concept from that you think that that's how it should be? Because we could probably create that for you, but it's going to get change takes change. And are you willing to do that?
massive. And it's why I can be quite critical on it in a minute, but I see a lot of younger generations. I absolutely applaud people going for it, putting the hours, working hard, like going, deserving it. But there is definitely something being 37 now where I say like nothing is giving me anything that beats lived experience right now. And we all have our own paths and stuff. I wouldn't go back to uni in the same way. I would have just got out there and done it. But the experience part now is like I think credibility stands for stuff a lot now as well. And I think that's cutting free for people where it's just like, okay, you got a nice little certificate, so what? Like, and you can keep doing those things and you have to really challenge yourself what they're for. And again, there's no judgment. If you want it because you didn't have an education and that ticks a box, fine. But ultimately, it comes down to then the consequences of that decision that you make. And that's the adult mindset where I think lots of people want it all.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you. I think, people used to chase qualifications or chase things for the sake of having them, but we're not in that world anymore now. You can get the qualification, and I totally agree. And actually, it's one of the things I bleat on about. Mindset is an unregulated industry. There are qualifications, and I got all of my stuff externally accredited by the CPD group and the ICF. And actually, what's really cool is that's now opened up a whole load of enterprise work, which is really exciting in Dubai and all sorts. Nothing to do with horse riders whatsoever, but that was what I was accrediting, equestrian mindset coaching, right? Because actually, there are some things where you don't need a certificate, you need to implement, and that is really, really important. But at the same time, there are also some things where you do need to know what you're doing as well. Like, don't just sell the fluff. Like, you need to know what you're doing. So I think there's this balance at the moment of there are some people out there selling something they've just learned and like no credibility there, and there are other people still chasing after certificates but not actually implementing anything. And I think it's like finding that balance for you, like what's going to make you credible, what results are you going to get, or changes, or whatever what are you selling, and how are you implementing the learning that you've had. So you need to be doing both all the time: learn, implement, learn, implement, learn, implement. And I think that some people get stuck in one or the other. I suppose stuck in implementation and not learning was slightly better, but still you've still got to grow and learn.
It's both. I'm definitely in that season. I think I'm noticing it more because, the one side I'm like, oh, I'm delivery heavy. The other side is I'm working with a lot of clients. I am learning so much at the minute. Like it's just gold dust coming to me all the time. They'll say things, and I'm like, no brainer. Use that on marketing, or they'll say this with this. And I'm like, I'll go and create that. That's what 10 of them have needed. Like it's just been incredible. And I always feel like business is like doing like well, but like growth at the minute. And I'm always aware of that with mindset. It's definitely a personal reflection. I think I noticed about 2 years ago, that was about October time. Previous to that, I was in corporate when I was doing a redundancy. I say project, it's probably not the right word to put with redundancies, but 30 people were being made redundant, and I was pretty much doing the process on my own. And it was bloody tough. And I knew because I'd had previous therapy stuff, I was like, I just need to go and see my therapist. And I did. And the same was when I was running my own business a couple of Octobers back. And I think the point hit where I was like, I'm bored. And I was like, there's something in that. What is it? Because I don't necessarily see boredom as either a bad thing either. It's again, you have to break down these things. But there's moments I have in business, and it's probably 3 or 4 a year, and I'll just know when I'm in them. I'm not in it right now, but I'm also learning a lot. But there'll be a moment I'm stuck, and it's just before I'm going to do that leverage kind of style stuff, and I know it. And I just, what's more comforting now, I guess, is that because I know I'm there, I know, again, like we said earlier, I've now got some tools and stuff that I need. And sometimes that's just I just need a week off, and it's probably the worst week you could have, but I just know I'll need that. It's knowing yourself really well, and just embracing some of those things, that it's not going to always be to plan on any of this.
Exactly. And what I love is you've just perfectly given a really good example there of nervous system regulation. So often boredom is when we're stuck in freeze, because
Yeah.
our brain will just demotivation and boredom normally mean we've pushed too hard for too long.
Yeah.
And actually, what you've just said there is I then know, and it doesn't have to be something as big as a week off or whatever. It could just be going for a run, or taking the dog for a walk, or going somewhere different, or just working from somewhere different sometimes,
Yeah.
Um, but exactly like you said, the bigger your toolbox, the more option of tools you've got. But if you don't know what's in that toolbox or how to use it, then you can't be as effective as you need to. So yeah, some of it's knowledge, some of it's implementation, and then some of it's getting the help when you need to get it because you can't see it for yourself.
Jenni, what does success mean to you?
Oh, when you told me you were going to ask me this question, I was like, oh, I don't think I like that question.
That's why I do plant that one. Just as people are like, "Well, how did you do your podcast?" I was like, "Look, it's really informal. We just have a great chat, great rich conversation, and we'll just go off of one another's flow." But I do always ask you this.
So I think for me, success, it means being happy, just like
Love that.
whatever it is that brings you joy and happiness. So for me, that's the freedom to do what I want. It's the freedom to spend time with my family and my daughter. It's the ability to go and ride my horses and go out to Portugal and ride those. And, so I think for me, whatever brings you happiness and joy, for me, that's what success is about. And I think if you ever really ask people what they're striving after, if they give you like a goal or a monetary goal or a lifestyle goal or something like that, when you boil it down, it's because they are doing things that bring them joy in having that success. So yeah, that's what it is for me, happiness.
Yeah, I remember a few years back, I was just at the end of corporate career, and I said to my dad once, I remember crystal clear, we were standing, I think people just leaving their house and stuff, and I was like, "What's success to you?" And he's like, "Being happy." And it was just that, and it was like very matter of fact. My dad retired at 52. He loves life, and he's worked. He did work hard all these years, but he also loved what he did very well at it, and he's retired, and he's loved life, and he has everything he wants now. And he's just that man that hates social media and stuff, but he's like, yeah, I love a big house. I love my holidays. I love this, and that's that. And it's like that piece in that I love as well. But absolutely, again, having a bit of measure on some of these bold words as well. What is success? What is happiness? And finding your own version of that is so important. That's why I asked the question. That's why I created this podcast. It's like it's not all I had all the money in corporate or what I deemed to be and you're successful. This is like, but I wasn't happy
No, me too.
at all.
100%. No.
Wasn't what I wanted to do. So even when these days are hard in business, which they are, and it's that I do that analogy of like me, like suck it up, buttercup, come keep going, keep going. It's like because I choose to do this. I love it. And the hard days are the ones where I knuckle down and go, come on, and it brings more. So
Yeah.
it's been an amazing conversation with you. I've loved it. And I know I could talk probably for just a whole afternoon for you and just either drink wine or drink coffee and just chat away about this. It is so important. And I want to really hit that home to people. If you aren't doing this work, there is so much that will have reflected from this conversation. It's an invitation, but also telling you've got to do it. And it will absolutely transform and change your life of everything that you do. Where can people connect and find more about all this incredible work you're doing?
So the best place really is social media. So Jenni Winter-Leach on Facebook, just friend me. Like that's where I'm doing most of my stuff now because you get to know me.
Yeah.
Um, I've got pages and things, but pages just don't do it anymore, not in the same way. So and at Flying Changes Coach or Jenni Winter-Leach, actually, if you're not a horse rider, on Instagram, just find me on there, really.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If this episode gave you something to think about, helped you in any way, or just made you feel seen, do me a favour, hit subscribe, leave a quick review, and maybe share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to dive deeper or need help, reach out. I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time.